There's a never-ending argument in Dragon Ball, and there's several of these type of arguments. We have the argument about canon and non-canon, and we have the sub versus dubbed, and also what is the proper way to watch Dragon Ball. Now, we're going to be talking about sub versus dub today. See, the thing is, when you look at the sub version and the dub version, and the things of like kids of the 90s that grew up with Dragon Ball, and there's some pros and cons to each of these. See, the thing is, of course, the original will be, everyone should always watch the sub Japanese version, because the thing about this is the purest form of Dragon Ball outside of the manga. That's the next thing that's right up. So definitely the manga, and you have to watch the sub version of Dragon Ball to get the full story and context behind everything. Now, when it comes to a level of enjoyment and what makes a show, see, the thing is, even though the dub of the 90s was terrible, wherein we mean by terrible, it was more so as just the wrong script. It wasn't according to the original script that was created in the manga. So things are changed around and people lose certain context to the story. But ultimately, as a piece of work that's being put together, this was still amazing and incredible outside of nostalgic. Because the thing is, at the end of the day, I can go and watch any version of Dragon Ball, whether it's a sub version, whether it's the 90s Ocean dub, then it switches over to the Funimation dub, to now we get a newer version of Funimation where it's like things are changed around, where we get Dragon Ball Z Kai, and Kai is supposed to be the closest to the original manga version that we get as a series. But the thing is, there's a lot of factors when it comes to creating a show and a TV show and a movie. I said TV show twice, but you get the gist. Now, there's different factors when it comes to this. See, the thing is, to me personally, my personal opinion just only applies to me. This doesn't apply to everybody else, and I feel like everyone should have their own choices on how they would enjoy Dragon Ball. And my thing is, I feel like people should consume Dragon Ball to the best way that they love to enjoy it. Now, there's two things to look at when you're enjoying Dragon Ball. See, me, like I said in a previous video, I enjoyed the way I watched Dragon Ball growing up as a kid on the Toonami, seeing some on the different Spanish networks and the Japanese DVDs and things that we was able to get our hands on at the time, because we loved Dragon Ball, and every version we love, even to the point that what we knew better at the time, because we didn't know these dub things wasn't accurate until actually seeing the actual sub version of these things with the proper terms. And even I was confused because I ended up reading the manga after, and when I seen the manga of Goku versus Vegeta and I seen the different dialogue, I was confused, like, okay, is this the actual dialogue or something that they just changed only for the show? I didn't even know if they changed that for the anime, so I went back to watch things kind of out of order, which I enjoy, to go back and find the accurate source of everything, because you want to know what is the actual true story of everything. And that's fine. You can enjoy by knowing, like, okay, this is the accurate story, this is what is really going on, what's taking place, and to have a better context of the story, and for later on in the future to know what's going on and to avoid confusion at this point. So those are all the best ways to look at it when you're dealing with stuff. But on an enjoyment level, as I looked at Dragon Ball Z Kai and certain things, like I said, it's a combination of stuff that makes a show great. Like I said, back in the 90s, even though the dub was inaccurate, doesn't mean that it was terrible. The thing was still enjoyable. There's certain moments of like how the actors delivered certain scenes, and that plays a factor. Looking at, you have different YouTube clips of people doing side by sides of which version did it better, and I'm looking at things, and majority of them, the one I grew up with did it better for its time, and that was the reason what made it a major success. It's just like a person who records music. Sometimes you may have somebody who want to go back and redo a song, and something about, even though they may be a better artist in the future, doesn't mean that they're going to deliver that line better that they did in the past if they wanted to redo something, because sometimes it was just golden the way they did it at that moment. And it's like capturing it at, it's like a skill if you're able to capture it exactly how it was done before. So the thing to that is that that's the same thing with this when it comes to voice acting and certain lines. Like I said, a lot of Vegeta moments I enjoyed the Ocean dub for the earlier episodes, and then I liked the Funimation dub in the later on episodes, and then having them go back to redub those things in Funimation, it just doesn't hit the same. Even though it's more accurate as far as the dialogue goes, it still doesn't hit the same in the scenes. Even I seen some stuff like I seen Vegeta transform in when he turned Super Saiyan for the first time in Dragon Ball Z against Android 19, and I watched the English dub version, the original one from Funimation in the 90s, and the version that we got later on in Kai, and also the Japanese sub version. And ultimately, the English dub from the 90s was better. The music they would consider as the Bruce Falconer score and everything like that, even though we know all the controversy behind that. But all that played a big element in making the scene even more impactful compared to just some of these other scenes where he's transforming without any music at all and stuff. And I like, some people like that, and to each his own, but to me personally, I feel like that's better. And that was the reason why a lot of fans, because one thing I realized is there's a lot of new anime fans, like the newer generation, that didn't grow up with Dragon Ball in the 90s or was too young or wasn't even born at the time, but they still know Dragon Ball. But there's some people that feel like Dragon Ball is trash, and they go to rewatch it, and they're watching these new dub versions, or either maybe even sub, who knows. But a lot of times they're looking at the newer versions of these things and not getting the bad translations, and they're turned off from Dragon Ball and feel like it's a trash show ultimately. So it's like those things do play a factor in bringing in new fans and stuff. Even though it was inaccurate doesn't mean the show was trash, because we still loved it with all the inaccurate moments and still was able to follow the show and got the gist of it. We pretty much got the gist of Dragon Ball from watching the inaccurate dub. It's not like we completely didn't get the gist of what Dragon Ball Z was. So a bad, I feel like I said, the dub is bad as far as like inaccuracy. As far as this dubbing period, the deliveries and stuff, I don't think those was terrible, because it made fans, and we still was able to get the gist of what the show was, even though a lot of stuff was changed for certain scenes to change pacings and certain things that happened, but we still loved it. So ultimately, that's my take on sub versus dub. Get in the comments and tell us what is your take.